If you have not already viewed the webinar titled, "What are behavior support plans?" please do so before continuing. This webinar will provide more information on new ways for you to respond to your child's challenging behavior. We will refer to these as new responses throughout this webinar. As a reminder, behavior support plans are most effective in reducing and preventing children's challenging behaviors when they address three critical areas: prevention of challenging behaviors, teaching replacement skills, and developing new responses to challenging behaviors. This webinar will teach you about the third component of a behavior support plan. It will focus on new ways you can respond to your child's challenging behaviors. These responses will teach your child that challenging behaviors will not help them meet their needs. Before we talk about new ways to respond to challenging behaviors, it's important to remember a few things about why your child engages in challenging behaviors. There are typically two reasons why your child uses challenging behaviors. First, children use challenging behaviors because they don't know how else to get their needs met. This means that very young children often don't know what else to do to get what they want, so they default to things like hitting, crying, biting, or other tantrum behaviors. This is why effective behavior support plans include teaching information on teaching your child appropriate replacement skills or appropriate ways to request what they want. For more information on teaching children replacement behaviors, please watch our webinar titled Behavior Support Plans: What are Replacement Skills? Second, children engage repeatedly in challenging behaviors because their previous experiences have taught them that challenging behaviors work. This means that in the past, when the child tantrumed, cried, screamed, or bit, it resulted in something that they wanted. Remember, children use different behaviors to gain or avoid different things such as attention, access to items, or access to activities. This webinar will look more closely at why these challenging behaviors may have worked in the past and what you can do in the future to teach your child that they need to use new skills to meet their needs. To begin, there may be multiple ways your child engages in challenging behaviors. These include, but are not limited to, biting, hitting, screaming, crying, or refusing to follow directions, also known as non-compliance. Although it can be extremely frustrating when your child engages in these behaviors, it is important to remember that how you react to your child can either increase or decrease the probability of your child doing this again. This is due to the fact that in the past, your child has found that these challenging behaviors have led to your child having their needs met. To teach your child that using these behaviors will not work, you first need to make sure that when your child uses challenging behaviors, it does not lead to your child getting their needs met. That probably means that you'll need to retrain yourself to act differently. Later on, we'll go over some examples showing how parents can determine appropriate new responses. Regardless of the specific way you choose to respond to your child or the specific challenging behavior your child engages in, you should keep in mind that teaching your child how to appropriately communicate their needs must be a priority. This means that your child will only be able to access their needs by using appropriate communication. By changing the way you respond to your child's challenging behaviors, you teach them that what they've done in the past will no longer work, and if they still want to meet their needs, they must communicate appropriately. For children who are not yet speaking, appropriate communication may include using hand gestures, sign language, or other nonverbal ways to indicate their needs. Right now, you may be feeling a bit overwhelmed, and that's okay. So let's break down how to develop and use new responses. Developing appropriate new responses to challenging behaviors can occur if you follow 3 simple steps. Step 1 requires you to determine the function of your child's behavior. As a reminder, a function of your child's behavior is a fancy way to describe why your child uses challenging behaviors. For more information on determining the function of your child's challenging behaviors, please re-watch the webinars titled Introduction to Function-Based Supports and Conducting a Functional Behavioral Assessment. Once you understand the function of your child's behavior, it's important to use that information to change how you react to your child's challenging behavior. From this point on, you will respond to your child's challenging behavior in a way that makes sure your child's challenging behaviors do not lead to your child getting their needs met. To begin, let's watch an interaction between Madison and Molly. In this example, you'll see Madison tell Molly it's time to clean up and go to bed. In response, Molly begins throwing toys. Madison responds by telling Molly she doesn't need to clean up and instead offers Molly an opportunity to read her favorite book. By responding this way, Madison has taught Molly that if she is told to do something and begins throwing toys, Madison will probably respond by removing the demand and suggesting something fun instead.
Hey Molly, we're gonna clean up and then we're gonna go to bed.
No, I don't want to clean up. I don't want to go to bed.
Hey, okay. How How about we just go to bed? Let's just go to bed and we'll go read a book you really want to read, okay? We'll pick out your favorite book.
Because Madison responded this way, Molly is more likely to throw objects in the future to avoid tasks. Now, let's watch a video of Madison using a new response to help teach Molly that throwing toys will not get her out of cleaning up.
Hey Molly, right now we're gonna clean up and then go to bed. I don't wanna clean up. We can clean up together. Put in. Nice cleaning. Let's keep going. We have to clean everything up. Look, it goes in here. Good job cleaning. Top on. In the back. Thanks for following directions. You cleaned up. Now we can go read your favorite book and go to bed. Let's go.
In this example, when Molly throws a toy, Madison makes sure Molly follows through with cleaning up. During this time, Madison remains calm and provides Molly with positive praise when she follows directions. This teaches Molly that throwing toys does not get her out of cleaning up. If you can change your behavior like Madison does, you can expect that over time your child will use challenging behaviors less often. Here's another example of Madison responding to Molly's challenging behaviors by giving her attention. You'll notice here that Madison is busy reading. Molly then begins pulling Madison's hair. In response, Madison turns to Molly, asks her a question, and gives Molly attention. In doing so, Madison teaches Molly that when she wants attention, she can gain it by pulling people's hair.
Oh, what do you want? What do you want to do? Okay, let's go.
To better support Molly, Madison decided to change her responses to Molly's challenging behaviors. Instead of giving Molly attention for hair pulling, the new behavior support plan requires Madison to ignore Molly's challenging behaviors and only give Molly quality attention for appropriate requests. This teaches Molly that hair pulling does not lead to attention, but asking appropriately will.
Play with me. I can play with you. Thanks for using your words.
In this example, you saw that Madison ignored Molly's challenging behaviors and gave her attention only when she appropriately requested it. For children with extreme behaviors, adults may need to give their child minimal attention to be safe. If this is the case, try to keep the child safe without using any unnecessary words or physical touch. To best support your child during challenging behaviors, we suggest you keep the following things in mind. First, at all times, keeping your child safe is the #1 priority. Sometimes, challenging behaviors can be dangerous to your child or others. Regardless of the new strategies you choose to use, please remember that your child's safety should always be your first goal. Second, during your child's challenging behaviors, do your best to avoid unnecessary attention. Unnecessary attention may include additional touching or language. When children are engaging in challenging behaviors and we continue to talk to them, it often teaches them that challenging behaviors result in more attention. For some kids, it doesn't matter if the attention is positive or negative, so keeping this in mind is key. Finally, whenever your child stops engaging in challenging behaviors and instead engages in appropriate behavior, it is important to provide your child with praise. Providing praise for appropriate behaviors helps your child understand what they can do instead of a challenging behavior to gain positive adult attention. Finally, it is important to keep 3 things in mind when you begin to respond differently to your child's challenging behaviors. First, it may feel unnatural. That's probably because it's different than how you responded in the past. With lots of practice, you'll quickly learn how to respond differently to your child to better support them. Second, you can also expect that the first few times you change the way you respond, it might appear to get worse. This is because your child will probably still try to use challenging behaviors to access their needs. Remember to stick with it and continue to collect data. Collecting data will allow you to see if a change is occurring. If over a few weeks you don't see any changes, it might be time to seek out a professional for advice. Finally, consistency is key. When using new response strategies, it's important that all adults in the family follow through with the new response strategies. It's also important that each adult is consistent throughout the day, each time your child attempts to use challenging behaviors. Overall, challenging behaviors can be very difficult and straining for families of young children. By focusing on strategies that prevent challenging behaviors, teach replacement skills, and develop new responses to challenging behaviors, we can better support young children to gain the skills necessary to meet their needs without using challenging behavior. For more information on challenging behaviors and how to address them, please watch our other webinars covering the following topics.